Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited about this video today because we're talking about the top exercise to grow your glutes, to grow your bum. It's just the best exercise. It's the best exercise out there, and I know it's an intimidating exercise. I know that because I wanted to start doing this exercise for so long and wouldn't, because I didn't know how to set it up and I didn't know what kind of bench I had to use. I was scared, okay? I was scared. So I know it's scary, but I promise you, if you take these tips and you take this video, you watch it over and over and over, you'll get the hang of it and you will love it and you will see so much growth in your glutes from this video. So before we get into how to hip thrust, make sure to like this video and subscribe down below, and obviously follow me on Instagram so you can see more of my workouts and things like that over on there. So let's get into how to hip thrust. Okay guys, getting right into the setup of the hip thrust. So the first thing you're going to want to do is find a bench that when you hip thrust, your knees are a 90-degree angle. This is going to be super important because your quads could take over if it's more than a 90-degree angle, if the bench is too high, etc. If you can't find a bench that's like this, if your benches are only too high at your gym, you can put plates or something underneath your feet so you lift up your feet a little bit higher so it gets yourself to a 90-degree angle. So then you're obviously going to need the equipment, barbell, a couple plates, whatever plates are going to be necessary for you. So obviously do it to your ability, not to my ability. Put a clip on both sides, and this is just how I put the weights onto the bar. I know some people often ask about how that's done. This is how I do it. And then you will also need a barbell pad. You can use a yoga mat if you don't have a pad, but I would double up if you're using heavier weight. Moving on to the form of the hip thrust. Form is really important here, and you can kind of decide which foot placement you want to begin with. This is going to be based on your hip anatomy. You're going to figure out, just based on experience, which form you like better. I personally choose the narrow one without the abduction, but there's wide and abduction, narrow abduction, and narrow non-abduction. You can also do wide, not abducted. It's really up to you. The way your foot's flared out too is a personal decision. I kind of flare my foot out, but not really that much. So moving into the actual movement, you simply slide the barbell over your hips. So make sure the barbell pad is evenly across your hips so that the weight is distributed on both sides nice and evenly. Keep your eyes forward and your chin tucked. When you lift up the weight, you want to make sure you have a posterior pelvic tilt, non-anterior, where you're sort of straining your back, making sure your back remains flat when you get to full extension. Now this is an example of bad form. My back is going all the way back. I'm not keeping my eyes forward. I'm looking up at the ceiling, and I'm risking hyperextension of my back, which could end up in lower back pain, etc. Not the type of form you want to do. Moving on to a couple variations you can do. The first one is going to be a banded variation. I do have bands that are on my website. They're sold out right now, but probably by the time this video is up, they'll be almost ready to go. Banded hip thrust put a little bit more resistance. It's basically called doubling the torque, where your knees have to force abduction outwards, which recruits your glutes a little bit more, and you're also focusing on pushing up at the same time. This next variation is going to be a slow eccentric. So there's two contractions during a hip thrust: the concentric, which is going up, and the eccentric coming down. Using slow eccentrics is just a different variation, recruiting different types of muscle fibers, where you're controlling the movement going down. The third type is a B stance hip thrust. So you see here I put one foot up, my heel is just on the ground, the other one is completely planted. This is putting most of the emphasis onto that planted foot. So it's kind of like a single leg hip thrust without just having only one leg in the air. Obviously when you do these, you want to do it on both sides. Iso holds, holding the weight at the top. This is an isometric contraction. Again, a different type of contraction than the concentric or the eccentric, but it still has tension on the muscle, just in a different type of way. And this last one is constant tension. The weight does not go all the way to the ground or come all the way up, and is constantly putting tension on my glutes. So maybe you don't want to start with barbell hip thrust right away. Here are some progressions you can go through to get your form down nice and steady. So the first one is just a regular hip thrust, no weight, focusing on that posterior pelvic tilt, keeping your eyes and your chin tucked. And next you can move on to a banded variation. So again, as we said, this does put a little bit of resistance onto your abductors, forcing your knees to abduct out, which will recruit your glutes and get you used to that. After this, you can start adding in some weight. What you choose to use is up to you. You could use a dumbbell, you could use a plate, you could use a Smith machine, or you could go into a preset barbell. I'm using a dumbbell here just because it's all I had available. I personally don't enjoy using dumbbells because they kind of get stuck. As you can see, you can't go all the way to the ground, but I do enjoy using Smith machines or preset barbells as a nice variation. Well, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to do more how-to videos like this on other types of lifts, like squats and lunges and different things like that. Make sure to like down below and hit subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you so much for watching.